Hello friends, Tanya here for Spellbinders, and this is day 14 of the Crafty Advent Calendar for 2023. Let's open that box and see what we've got. Looks like another small die set. And what do we got? Ooh, this looks like an ice cream cone. That looks like a super fun and versatile thing. We've got a little cherry even here and the stem. So I'm going to apply a little bit of glue to the back of the stem and slip it through the hole at the top of the cherry. This is a really fun detail. There are a couple other textured details on it. This is the waffle texture for your waffle cone. You wouldn't have to use this extra layer, but I think it really adds a nice detail. I did use some medium brown cardstock. This is some retired cardstock from Stampin' Up, I believe. And I did do some extra inking with a darker brown, distress oxide, a distress ink to add a little more difference between the two different browns. We've got a cream colored cardstock for the vanilla ice cream and some brown, dark brown for the chocolate. So we've got our ice cream cone with the cherry on top. We're going to pull out this beautifully detailed border die and we're going to use it in a new way. I want to make a mini slimline card. So I have two of these detailed images cut out and I'm just going to overlap these pieces here to the two ends to create a longer strip. So this would end up being around 8 inches long. And I did use mirror cardstock, which does take a little longer for the glue to set up. So I put it under a heavy block while we take this 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch piece of cardstock. And we're going to use that scallop border and some partial die cutting to create the coordinating edge. Now I don't want this panel to cover the entire front of the mini slimline card, so I did cut it the size of the card front, and I fully intend to trim this down to fit I think 3 by 6 inches is what it's ultimately going to mat on top of. And I knew that I was going to have a hard time making sure that this edge was straight. So I wanted this main piece to be a little bigger so I can then use a die to cut it to have nice even edges and to be a straight edge. There we've got our edge completed, and we're going to take a mini slimline, the precision layering mini slimline dies, and I have a 3 by 6 inch piece die to frame this out. And I'm using my grid line on the mat to help me line this up so that my edge is straight and all of the, it makes a nice rectangular shape. I'm not communicating this very well. I just want it to be a nice even partial panel to layer on top of another 3 by 6 inch piece. Next, we're going to take the Argyle Socks embossing folder. It came out last year, I think. It is still available. We're going to only emboss part of this piece of cardstock. I'm just going to try to line this up correctly. I'm using the border die to make sure it is the right width. I ran that through my platinum machine, and because I have the full-size platinum machine, I could put this sideways, and that worked great. We're going to use some pearl lustre gilding polish, of course, to highlight the embossing on this panel. I'm being careful not to get this on the scalloped portion where the gold detail border is going to glue down, just because I didn't want it there. That looks fantastic. Now it's time to add dots of glue with my precision glue tip on the Barely Arts glue. This is my favorite glue. It is pretty much the only adhesive that I use anymore. It's very versatile and inexpensive, and it is a nice strong hold. There are lots of glues that work. I landed on this one because of all of its great features and the fact that it does not set my asthma off as much. Boy, I need to stop talking about that. All right, we're going to hold that down with a little bit of, with a heavyweight block just to give that a little time to dry. I'm using my scissors to trim off the extra border, and by layering those two pieces together or joining those two pieces together, we have a nice long strip. I'm going to take some sugary gumdrop, distressed mica stain, and this pink cardstock. I want to make it a little shimmery. And because this is not Spellbinders cardstock, I know that it doesn't necessarily glimmer very well. We're going to take these sentiments for every day, I think it's called, and we're going to foil on this piece of cardstock with some copper glimmer foil. When I use distressed mica stain, something about the properties of the distressed mica stain makes the foiling take so much better. So now I'm going to use that same die that I used to cut down this panel to cut out a full 3 by 6 inch panel to glue, to layer everything up on. Just carefully making sure that my placement is the way I want it. Just dry fitting everything, and then I'll use some washi tape or low tack tape to hold that in place while I run that through the die cutting machine. That turned out beautifully. I have in the past been a little afraid to do foiling directly on my panel just in case I messed it up, but this turned out great. And seeing as I didn't do any other design features on it yet, if I messed it up, I could easily start again. I do have extra scraps of cardstock behind all of the different pieces that I'm layering here together, and we have a 3.25 inch by 3.25 by 6.25 inch mini slimline card, and I have extra cardstock. I had to put like 4 layers under the pointy part of the cone in order to make up for all of the different layers that it is laying over. I did not put cardstock behind the area that goes over the gold mirror card border, kind of like you would if you were avoiding baker's twine or ribbon, so that you don't have an extra lump right in the middle of your project. Just trying to get my placement just right. I want my cone to be nice and straight. And then those sequins from day 9, they're coming out to play again. I'm going to use these as accents in the middle of the diamond shapes of the border here, and I am alternating the 2 sizes of sequins. Really doesn't matter which size you start with, but it does create a fun detail in this border. It really jazzes this whole design up. And when I trimmed off those extra pieces from the border, I set them aside with the intent of adhering to them to the inside of the card. I love to decorate the insides of my cards, and I like to bring details from the front to the inside to give a nice cohesive card design. Just adding some extra dots of glue behind these pieces, and it's almost like the banner would have wrapped around the inside of the card. If I'd been thinking, I would have lined that up with the border from the inside, but I decided to do it near the top of the inside of the card. I die cut another ice cream cone. There you can see I did a little ink blending on the waffle portion before I adhered it to the ice cream base. Again, just a couple dots of glue on the back of this in some of the intersecting areas. And then we'll layer that onto the ice cream cone triangle. I decided not to do the extra layers on the ice cream cone itself, on the ice cream, and I didn't use the cherry. I was trying to be not too layery here, because the more layers you add, the more that it affects the ability of the card to close. And I cut the ice cream from the scrap of the same pink cardstock that I used for the front of the card. Now we're just going to trim off the last little bits of the gold foil that overhung the inside. And we'll just make sure that this top crease is nice using my bone folder. And that completes this card. I had a blast putting it together. I completed 4 days worth of cards in one day, and it was a good day, let me tell you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Check the description box below for all of the products that I used today. They will be listed and linked. As always, leave me a comment. I love to hear from you. I will be back tomorrow with another video, and until then, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.